Tonight, a quiet switch flips. Your old limits crumble. Doors you never saw swing open, and reality leans in to listen. Once activated, you stop asking permission and start bending outcomes, ready to become beautifully dangerous to everything that kept you small, until now, forever. In every era, a handful of people discover a hidden lever inside themselves and pull it. The world calls it luck or talent. It isn't. It's activation, a precise inner shift that dissolves compliance, amplifies signal, and invites improbable outcomes to gather around you. When this switch flips, you are no longer negotiating with the old reality. You are rewriting its terms in your handwriting. This audiobook is a field manual for that switch. It's not about becoming reckless. It's about becoming inevitable. Here, you will learn to align desire with discipline, vision with embodiment, and courage with quiet systems that work while you sleep. You will assemble a new identity that acts before doubt arrives, speaks with the weight of truth, and leaves a wake of synchronized opportunities. You will feel the tempo of your life change. The journey begins in the liminal hour between who you were and who you are choosing. We will map the nervous system, language, rituals, and environments that either sabotage or supercharge your signal. We will transmute the friction of fear into propulsion. We will build practices that compound nightly, micro-adjustments that seem invisible until a week becomes a watershed and a month becomes a miracle. Nothing here relies on superstition. Everything here relies on repeatable processes that recondition attention, emotion, and behavior. The old reality thrives on your hesitation. This book dismantles it by replacing hesitation with rhythm, reaction with authorship, and scarcity with transmission. You will learn to treat setbacks as data, success as practice, and momentum as a habitat. You will craft boundaries that protect the signal and alliances that multiply it. Most of all, you will remember what power feels like when it is clean and generous. Begin. The lever is within reach. Pull it, and never return the switch to dim. Chapter 1. The Moment of Switch. There is always a single instant, a quiet tremor in the nervous system where something shifts. At first, it feels almost imperceptible, like the sound of a match striking in a cavern, but then it floods the body with unmistakable electricity. The old self knows it as danger. The new self recognizes it as the beginning of activation. This is the moment of switch. Most people never notice it because the mind is trained to brush it aside. It shows up as a sudden clarity in the fog, the urge to say the thing you've always swallowed, the sensation that one more compromise will fracture you. It's a physiological alarm, not of fear, but of readiness. Your palms may sweat, your heart may accelerate, your lungs open wider as though preparing to hold a larger atmosphere. The body has known the truth long before the mind dares to admit it. Reality is bendable, and you have just reached for the lever. The old reality resists here. It whispers, don't risk it, stay small, don't make noise. It wants you still and compliant. But when you choose not to obey, the switch is pulled. A new current begins to run through your days. Ordinary conversations suddenly open into opportunities. Choices you avoided last week now feel urgent and obvious. Time itself seems to reorganize around your conviction. This chapter is not about trying to force the moment, but about recognizing it. The switch comes not as fireworks, but as a subtle permission slip signed by your subconscious. You will know it because everything trivial feels intolerable, and everything essential feels magnetic. From here, every step you take is amplified. You are no longer moving through the world quietly. The world begins moving around you. The moment of switch is the birth of danger to the old patterns, the old hesitations, and the old version of you that thought it safe to wait. Chapter 2. Signal over noise. Activation means nothing if your broadcast is scrambled. Reality does not respond to incoherence. The old self is noisy, a mind full of half-formed wishes, scattered obligations, contradictory affirmations. That noise keeps the signal weak, keeps you invisible, keeps your switch dimmed even after you've pulled it. Signal is clarity. It is the sharpened expression of intent without apology. It is choosing one frequency and holding it until reality aligns with it. When your inner broadcast is clean, opportunities tune to you like iron to a magnet. Strangers remark that they feel drawn to help you. Doors open with eerie precision, and resources arrive just as they are needed. This is not magic, it is the mathematics of resonance. Noise comes disguised as important. Endless scrolling, hollow conversations, obligations that serve no growth. Every unit of energy spent on noise weakens the current of your activation. This is why most never sustain the switch. They scatter the charge instead of channeling it. To be dangerous to the old reality, you must first become ruthless about your broadcast. This is not about saying no to everything. It is about saying yes only to what multiplies your signal. Notice what feels like static in your body, the meeting that drains you, the task that numbs you, the thought that recycles without progress. Cut ruthlessly. Then notice what feels like current, the project that excites, the connection that expands, the vision that steadies your breath. Amplify that. When your signal grows stronger, you will feel it. People misunderstand and think luck has found you. But luck is simply clear signal colliding with prepared timing. The old reality hates this because its survival depends on your confusion. Eliminate noise, protect the channel, and you will not just speak into the void. You will summon response. Chapter 3. Body as Transmitter. You are not just a mind that thinks. You are a body that broadcasts. The old reality taught you to ignore this, to live as if thought is supreme and flesh is irrelevant. But once activated, you discover the body is the most immediate transmitter of signal. Every gesture, every breath, every posture communicates your switch before a single word is spoken. Watch how the old self slouched, how it fidgeted, how it hesitated in movement. That body language whispered compliance. The world responded accordingly, offering only what matched that posture. When you change the body, you change the frequency you emit. Straighten the spine, slow the breath, look without flinching, and suddenly the room listens differently. This is not pretense, it is embodiment. The nervous system is your amplifier. Each breath regulates whether your signal is jittering or stable. Shallow breathing equals fragile frequency. Deep, rhythmic breathing equals unshakable transmission. Practice holding your posture as though you are rooted, as though your body is an antenna pulling energy from the ground itself. Do this not as a performance, but as a remembering. Every cell in you carries ancient instructions for power. You were built not to shrink, but to emanate. When the body aligns with the activated mind, reality responds viscerally. Negotiations tilt in your favor without explanation. Strangers defer without knowing why. Opportunities seem to present themselves as though they sensed your arrival. The old reality becomes threatened here because it no longer recognizes you as prey. It senses a different current moving through you, one that does not bend to its familiar pressures. The body confirms the activation, turning invisible inner switches into visible, undeniable force. And so the lesson is simple. Treat your body as the transmitter it is. Breathe it into steadiness. Move it with conviction. Hold it as though you belong, because once the switch is pulled, you always do. Chapter 4. Language that locks reality. Words are not decorations. They are instructions, commands, and contracts written into the architecture of your life. Every sentence you speak becomes a pulse in the field of possibility, either locking in hesitation or fastening certainty into place. The old reality survives because it taught you to use language carelessly. Phrases like, I'll try, maybe, someday, I don't know. Each one a dilution, a weakening, a code that tells reality to remain undecided. Once activated, you cannot afford such leakage. Your language must become a key, not a question. To lock reality means to choose words that collapse probability in a form, to close the back doors that lead back into doubt. Instead of I hope this works, you say I am making this work. Instead of I don't know if I can, you say I will find out how. This is not mere optimism, it is reprogramming. The subconscious listens to language as if it were law. Repetition of hesitant phrasing teaches your nervous system to hesitate. Repetition of decisive phrasing trains your muscles to act. The body follows words. The world follows body. A new cascade begins when you discipline your vocabulary. Every great shift begins here with the daily audit of speech. Notice what escapes your mouth in casual moments. Self-deprecating humor, disclaimers, apologies for simply existing. These are subtle poisons, silently broadcasting your compliance with the old reality. Replace them deliberately with language that encodes strength. Do not say, I'm bad at this. Say, I'm building mastery in this. Do not say, this always happens to me. Say, this is the moment it changes. The difference is not semantic. The difference is destiny. When you use words as weapons of clarity, reality bends to meet their precision. A room begins to treat you differently, not because you announced power, but because you spoke as though it were already the floor you stood on. The practice is relentless. Write down the 3 phrases you will no longer tolerate from your own mouth. Replace them with 3 alternatives that lock reality in your favor. Repeat them until they feel as natural as breathing. Soon you will watch your external world shift, almost bewilderingly, into alignment with your inner declarations. Language is not just for communication, it is for construction. Once activated, every sentence is a brick. You are either building the old prison again or raising a new cathedral. Choose carefully, speak deliberately, and reality will obey. Chapter 5: Friction into Fuel. Activation is never smooth. To switch into a new self is to collide with resistance, internal doubt, external skepticism, and the inertia of old patterns. Most retreat here, believing the presence of friction means failure. But once activated, you understand the opposite. Friction is proof of ignition. It means you are generating heat. The old reality taught you to interpret discomfort as danger. In truth, discomfort is compressed energy waiting to be harnessed. Anxiety, fear, hesitation, these are not signals to stop, but signals that you are approaching the edge where transformation lives. If you can ride the sensation rather than retreat from it, friction becomes fuel. Consider the chemistry of fear. Adrenaline surges, heart rate increases, muscles tense. The body is preparing for action, yet the untrained mind wastes that preparation on panic. The activated mind redirects it. The same chemical storm that paralyzes one person propels another into clarity. You feel the same sweat, the same pulse, but instead of drowning in it, you ride it like a current carrying you forward. The method is simple but radical. When friction rises, pause and reframe. Ask yourself, what if this is not danger but energy? What if this sensation is the price of access to my next level? Immediately, you change the story. The surge in your chest is no longer a reason to withdraw, but a signal that you are in the right place. Every breakthrough in history was born through this alchemy. The artist trembling before the canvas, the entrepreneur risking collapse, the speaker whose knees shook behind the curtain, each faced friction. What separated them from the silent crowd was not the absence of fear, but their ability to metabolize it, to make friction into fuel, create a ritual. When doubt floods you, breathe once, name it aloud. This is energy. Channel it into one decisive action immediately. A call, a word, a step. Train your nervous system to associate resistance with movement, not paralysis. Over time, your subconscious will stop interpreting friction as a wall and begin interpreting it as a launch pad. This terrifies the old reality. It thrives on your avoidance, your habit of mistaking discomfort for impossibility. When you transform friction into fuel, the old reality loses its most powerful weapon. You become the one who moves because of fear, not in spite of it. You become the one who feeds on resistance until momentum becomes inevitable. Remember this: smooth roads rarely lead anywhere worth reaching. Friction is not failure. Friction is the spark, and once you know how to burn it, nothing can starve your fire. Chapter 6. The 72-Hour Surge. Activation is fragile in its infancy. A spark can light a bonfire, or it can vanish in the wind of hesitation. This is why the first 72 hours after pulling the switch are crucial. They determine whether your activation becomes a lifestyle or a fleeting inspiration. The 72-hour surge is about seizing momentum before the old reality can regroup. For 3 days, you create an environment where the new current cannot be interrupted. Think of it as a ceremonial seal, a ritual lock that fastens your activation into the nervous system before doubt can uncoil. Day 1 is declaration. You must act immediately to anchor the switch. Make a visible move, announce a commitment, remove a toxic element from your environment, or take a step so bold it cannot be unseen. This day is about signaling to yourself and to the world that the old you has expired. Day 2 is immersion. You flood your mind and body with reinforcement. Saturate your environment with inputs that confirm your new path. Books, mentors, movement, music, silence. Starve every channel of distraction. The old reality will attempt to lure you with familiar comforts. Resist entirely. The nervous system is learning its new baseline, and every choice teaches it which world you belong to. Day 3 is consolidation. You organize the chaos of energy into structure. Write down the routines, the boundaries, the systems that will carry this current forward. Without form, energy dissipates. With form, it compounds. By the end of the 3rd day, you should feel the new rhythm, not as an effort, but as a gravitational pull, something your body begins to crave. The 72-hour surge works because the subconscious is malleable in the early days of activation. Habits are still soft clay. Each decisive action, each aligned environment, each ritual compounds into permanence. 3 days of ruthless alignment outweigh months of half-hearted effort. Most never cross this threshold. They feel the switch, make one move, and then slip back into noise. But you will not, because you understand the mathematics of momentum. 3 days is all it takes to establish a frequency the old reality cannot overwrite. Treat the surge as sacred. Cancel what distracts, immerse yourself fully, and emerge on the other side carrying a new gravitational field. From this point, your activation is no longer a spark. It is a fire spreading through every corner of your reality. The old patterns will look at you and see a stranger. And that is the point. You are no longer theirs. You belong to the switch. Chapter 7. Decision Velocity. The old reality survives because it convinces you to linger. It whispers that more research, more hesitation, more committee approval will keep you safe. It thrives in your delays, feeding on the time you waste analyzing what should have already been executed. Once activated, you can no longer afford that drag. Decision velocity is your weapon. It is the art of collapsing deliberation into movement, of refusing to drown in the swamp of endless options. Velocity does not mean recklessness. It means understanding the difference between reversible and irreversible choices. Most decisions in life are reversible. You can adjust course, pivot, recalibrate. These require speed, not perfection. The minority of choices, irreversible ones, demand deeper thought, but they are rare. The old self inverted this ratio, wasting weeks on trivial reversibles while avoiding the few that truly mattered. The activated self flips it back. The faster you decide, the faster reality reveals feedback. That feedback is information. Information is leverage, and leverage accelerates momentum. Decision velocity multiplies clarity because you learn in days what most discover in years. You cannot become dangerous to the old reality if you treat every step as fragile glass. You must move with the knowing that most ground can be retaken if it cracks beneath you. Think of momentum as a living organism. It requires food in the form of decisions. Each choice is a calorie, fueling motion forward. Starve it with hesitation, and it weakens. Feed it consistently, and it grows into something unstoppable. Speed creates compound effect because one decision leads to the next, and before you know it, you've built a rhythm the old world cannot interrupt. This is why those who hesitate appear unlucky, while those who move fast seem magnetic. It is not fate, it is velocity. The universe arranges itself around momentum. People align with leaders who decide. Opportunities gravitate to those who act. The world is desperate for someone willing to claim responsibility and move, even when conditions are imperfect. Your practice is simple but demanding. The moment you feel yourself circling, set a clock. Give yourself a countdown, 5 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day, depending on the weight of the choice. When the timer ends, move. The deadline becomes the hammer that shatters hesitation. This may feel brutal at first, but soon it will feel liberating. Each decisive act chisels away the stone that kept you frozen. Velocity is not about rushing life. It is about accelerating alignment. The more you decide, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more powerful your signal. Hesitation was your old identity. Speed is your new one. The old reality cannot keep up with this pace. By the time it reacts, you've already chosen again, moving further, faster, and freer. Chapter 8. Designing a Proof Loop. Words and intentions ignite momentum, but without proof, the signal fades. The subconscious demands evidence. The world requires receipts. To sustain activation, you must build proof loops. Cycles where every action creates undeniable confirmation that reinforces your new reality. These loops transform fragile belief into concrete identity. The old self starved because it relied on inspiration alone. It spoke of change but rarely stacked evidence to support it. The result was cognitive dissonance, a life where intentions floated unanchored. Once activated, this cannot continue. You must create visible demonstrations that whisper back to your nervous system. It's working. I am becoming this. A proof loop has 3 parts: action, evidence, reinforcement. First, you act decisively, even if small. Next, you extract the proof, an outcome, a shift, a micro win. Finally, you reinforce it through recognition, journaling, ritual, or repetition. This cycle builds on itself, each loop tighter and stronger, until it becomes impossible for your mind to deny the reality you are shaping. Consider the entrepreneur who commits to building a new venture. If she only dreams of it, the signal dissipates. But if she makes a call, secures a meeting, receives even a single yes, this becomes proof. She writes it down, celebrates it, engraves it into memory. The subconscious begins to accept. I am building this company. The loop continues. The wins multiply. The new identity solidifies. Without proof, doubt festers. With proof, certainty compounds. Even the smallest evidence matters. A message answered, a page written, a rep completed. Proof is not about scale. It is about continuity. Like drops of water carving stone, consistent loops reshape your internal landscape. Designing proof loops requires intention. Begin each day with one act so simple it cannot be avoided, yet so aligned it generates undeniable evidence. Then amplify it. Capture the moment. Recognize the proof, not as trivial, but as the very building block of your new reality. Share it if needed. Let others witness it. Let accountability multiply its force. The old reality drowns you in vagueness. The proof loop rescues you with clarity. Every day becomes a cycle of demonstration and reinforcement until belief is no longer necessary. You know. And once you know, the world has no choice but to adjust. Chapter 9. Boundary Architecture. The old reality enters through cracks. Every distraction, every draining person, every meaningless obligation is a breach in the fortress of your activation. Without boundaries, your signal leaks. Without architecture, your energy is siphoned away before it can accumulate. If you want to remain dangerous to the old world, you must design boundaries that protect the current you've ignited. Boundaries are not walls of fear, they are gates of discernment. They do not isolate you, they preserve your power. The difference between exhaustion and mastery is often nothing more than the quality of your boundaries. The old self tolerated interruptions, gave away time cheaply, allowed anyone with a loud voice to trespass on sacred ground. The activated self does not. Begin with time. Every hour is an altar. Guard it with precision. Appointments, calls, and endless obligations were the old reality's tools to dilute you. Build clear architecture, dedicated hours for deep work, rituals that no one can intrude upon, sacred space where your signal can strengthen. When you treat time as sacred, others do too. Next, protect your emotional field. The old world thrives on pulling you into dramas and doubts that were never yours to carry. You must learn to say no with the force of a locked gate. Not every conversation deserves your attention. Not every crisis belongs in your nervous system. Protect your emotional bandwidth as fiercely as your financial wealth. Both are currencies, but one cannot be replenished once wasted. Then address your digital boundaries. Devices are portals, and without control, they become backdoors for intrusion. Notifications, endless feeds, the constant tug of distraction, these are leaks in your architecture. Close them, curate your inputs, let your technology serve your activation, not sabotage it. Finally, set boundaries in relationships, not from arrogance, but from alignment. Surround yourself with those who amplify your signal, not those who dilute it. This does not mean discarding every old connection, but it does mean placing people in their rightful place within your architecture. Some belong at the inner gates, others only at the outer walls. Boundary architecture is not about saying no to life. It is about saying yes to the right life. It is the design that allows your activation to grow without interruption. The old reality fears your boundaries because they cut off its access. It can no longer whisper through your open doors. It can no longer siphon your time with trivialities. You become contained, concentrated, and therefore infinitely more powerful. The practice begins small. 1 hour you will not surrender, 1 conversation you will not enter, 1 app you will not check. But these small gates add up, creating a fortress that holds your signal intact. From there, your energy compounds, your activation deepens, and the old reality realizes with dread that it can no longer reach you. Boundaries are not limitations, they are liberation. They are the architecture that protects the cathedral of your becoming. Build them, and your dangerous new self will stand unshaken, immune to the sabotage of the world you left behind. Chapter 10. The 1-Hour War Room. Momentum without reflection is blind. Energy without review is wasted. The old reality kept you reactive by forcing you into days that blurred together, one obligation tumbling into the next, no vantage point, no strategy. To be dangerous to that system, you must rise above it. The weapon for this is the 1-Hour War Room, a weekly ritual where you step out of the noise and shape your coming battles with clarity. Picture it not as another meeting with yourself, but as command. This is where generals decide campaigns, where focus replaces frenzy, where chaos becomes chess. 1 hour is all you need when it is executed with discipline. The old you tried to plan in fragments, 10 minutes here, half-thought intentions there, but that left you exposed. The activated you makes this hour untouchable. It becomes the ritual that guards your trajectory. Begin with review. You step into the war room with no illusions. The past 7 days are examined like battlefield reports. What worked, what faltered, where was energy lost? This is not about blame, but data. Victories are noted not for pride, but to extract their patterns. Failures are dissected not for shame, but to reveal their mechanics. You refuse to move forward without harvesting wisdom from what already occurred. Next comes alignment. You ask yourself, what is the single objective that matters most this week? The old reality thrived on scattering you into dozens of half-hearted priorities. In the war room, you collapse the noise into one focal point. This is your campaign. Everything else is a skirmish to be minimized or deferred. This ruthless narrowing is what creates exponential force. Once aligned, you build structure. Days are no longer vague containers, but sharpened arenas. You assign your priority to specific times, guard those times with the boundaries you have been constructing, and decide in advance how you will know success when the week ends. This prevents drift. It ensures you are not just moving, but moving toward. Finally, you invoke momentum. A war room is not sterile. It is ceremonial. Light a candle, put on music that stirs your blood, create a physical signal that this hour is different. Let your body and mind understand that this is not casual planning, but command. The subconscious respects ritual. Anchor it deeply, and soon this weekly hour will feel sacred, unmissable, magnetic. The old reality will try to intrude, to tell you there is no time, that crises demand you skip it. Resist. Missing this hour is forfeiting your edge. With it, you become the one who directs the week, instead of being directed by it. Without it, you slip back into the reactive current that kept you ordinary. The 1 hour war room is how you ensure activation compounds. Each week becomes a campaign, each campaign a conquest, each conquest evidence that you are building a new empire of self. The old reality cannot withstand an enemy who organizes this way. You are no longer a wanderer, you are a strategist of your own destiny. Chapter 11. Attention Economics. Energy is finite. Focus is currency. The old reality knew this, which is why it scattered your attention into 1,000 tiny expenditures. Gossip, distractions, meaningless scrolling, commitments without return. You leaked your wealth daily without realizing you were bankrupting your signal. Once activated, you cannot afford such poverty. You must become an economist of attention, investing it only where the yield justifies the cost. Think of your attention as gold coins. Each morning you are handed a limited bag. Every thought, every glance, every click spends one. Most people drop them carelessly, pouring them into holes that never return value. They spend the coins on endless news cycles, on other people's drama, on tasks designed to feel urgent but worth nothing. At the end of the day, they wonder why nothing moved. The truth is simple. They invested badly. The activated self behaves differently. You count the cost of every coin. Before you engage, you ask, will this multiply my energy, expand my signal, reinforce my activation? If yes, you invest. If not, you withdraw. This is not about cold detachment, but about sacred stewardship. Your attention is the raw material of your reality. Wherever it flows, growth follows. The practice begins with awareness. Carry a journal and note where your attention goes in a single day. You will be shocked by the leaks, minutes stolen by distractions, hours consumed by obligations that build nothing. Awareness is painful, but it is the first step toward mastery. Next, you establish a portfolio. Just as an investor diversifies, you choose categories where your attention earns compounding returns: creation, relationships of amplification, body and energy, skill acquisition. Allocate consciously. For example, 3 coins into your body through movement and rest, 5 into your craft, 2 into aligned relationships. Suddenly life feels intentional. Suddenly results accelerate. Finally, you practice ruthless divestment. Sell off the losses, cut ties with drains, block the notifications, leave the rooms where your coins vanish. You must believe that your attention is too valuable to waste, because it is. The old reality thrives on your belief that you have infinite focus to give, but you don't. And once you reclaim this truth, it collapses. Attention economics explains why some rise while others stagnate. The difference is not talent or luck, but allocation. The wealthy of consciousness understand that every coin spent shapes their destiny. The poor of consciousness scatter theirs until nothing remains. Which one you become depends on whether you treat your attention as disposable or divine. From this chapter forward, count every coin, guard your bag, invest where compounding occurs. You will discover that life is not unfair, it is accounting. Those who master the economics of attention become rich. In momentum, in clarity, in outcomes. Those who don't remain enslaved to noise. Choose wealth, choose focus. The return is inevitable. Chapter 12, Narrative Control. Reality is not raw material. It is story. Every day you narrate your existence, and every narration becomes law to your subconscious. The old reality understood this better than you did. It tricked you into telling stories of limitation, stories of victimhood, stories where you were the side character in someone else's plot. You spoke these tales until they hardened into truth. Once activated, you reclaim authorship. Narrative control is the recognition that you are both storyteller and protagonist. What you say about your life is not commentary, it is programming. Each time you describe yourself as unlucky, shy, bad with money, struggling, your subconscious nods and complies. Each time you describe yourself as growing, rising, becoming, succeeding, it obeys with equal loyalty. The subconscious cannot distinguish between fiction and fact. It only follows repetition. This is why controlled narrative is so powerful. You choose the script, repeat it with conviction, and your nervous system aligns to embody it. Soon, behavior matches story, environment reflects story. People treat you as the character you insist upon being. The practice begins with a purge. Write down the current story you tell about yourself. Be brutal. What phrases do you repeat? I'm too tired. Nothing ever works out. I'm behind. I can't catch a break. These are not reflections, they are chains. Recognize them as such, then rewrite. Craft a new story as though it were already true. Speak it in first person, present tense, detailed, embodied. I am disciplined. I am magnetic. I create results with speed and precision. People trust my signal and doors open for me. At first it may feel false, but repetition reshapes truth. Just as lies repeated long enough become accepted, new scripts spoken long enough become reality. Narrative control extends beyond self-talk. It includes what you tell others. Every conversation is an opportunity to reinforce or dilute your story. Stop rehearsing your struggles. Stop narrating scarcity. Each retelling cements them. Instead, share your wins, your progress, your vision, not to boast, but to condition. You are training the world to mirror back the stories you have chosen. The old reality cannot survive if you seize the pen. It relied on you retelling its script endlessly, binding yourself in old loops. But once you edit, once you author, the loop shatters. You become someone new, not because the world gave you permission, but because you rewrote the narrative from which your life unfolds. Remember this: the story you tell most often becomes the life you live most fully. Guard your narrative, curate it, speak it, repeat it until it drips from your tongue without effort. When your words and your actions sing the same song, reality harmonizes. You will no longer chase proof. You will embody it, and the old reality, with all its tired scripts, will fade into silence. Chapter 13: Charm of the Inevitable. There is a strange magnetism that surrounds those who have fully activated their signal. They are not desperate, not chasing, not even grasping, and yet opportunities flow to them as if pulled by an invisible current. This is the charm of the inevitable. It is not luck. It is not coincidence. It is the gravitational field generated when your conviction becomes so absolute that reality itself bends to match it. The old reality thrives on uncertainty. It convinces you to live in hesitation, to beg for validation, to cling to outcomes as if they might slip through your fingers. That hunger is repulsive. It pushes away what you most want. The activated self understands the inverse. That certainty is irresistible. Not arrogance, but inevitability. The quiet knowing that what you seek is already unfolding, and that nothing, not time, not doubt, not external resistance, can interrupt it. Think of a mountain river. It does not question whether it will reach the sea. It simply flows, cutting through rock if necessary, winding, bending, but never stopping until it merges with its destination. That is inevitability. When you embody it, others feel it. They sense that aligning with you means aligning with something that cannot be stopped. People invest in you not just for what you do, but because they want to be pulled into your current. The practice of inevitability begins with vision, but it is vision carried in the body. You don't merely think this will happen. You live as if it already has. Your tone of voice changes. Your posture straightens. Your choices narrow to align with that single trajectory. Doubt may still whisper, but it can no longer govern. The world notices. Calls get returned. Invitations appear. Partnerships crystallize. It feels magical, but it is simply resonance. The charm of the inevitable is amplified by consistency. Every small act aligned with your vision compounds into proof, and proof feeds the field. Soon the environment reflects back what you already knew. This is why desperation collapses attraction. It interrupts consistency. But inevitability builds because you refuse to abandon your course. You are the river. You flow until the sea greets you. To cultivate inevitability, eliminate conditional language. No more if this works. Replace it with when this works. No more I hope. Replace it with I know. Then build rituals that confirm it daily. Writing your vision in the present tense, embodying the behaviors of the version of you who has already arrived, and surrounding yourself with symbols that remind your subconscious of its inevitability. The old reality is allergic to inevitability. It cannot manipulate someone who no longer bargains with possibility. Once you radiate inevitability, doors that resisted before will swing open, not because they changed, but because you did. What once felt improbable will unfold naturally, and others will look at you as though you are charmed. But you will know the truth. You became inevitable, and inevitability is the most dangerous charm of all. Chapter 14: Skill Stack Acceleration. Activation is not only about energy, it is about capacity. The old reality taught you to rely on talent, to cling to the idea of innate gifts as the determining factor of success. This created stagnation, jealousy, and excuses. The activated self discards that lie. Power is not in single talents, but in skill stacks, combinations of abilities that, when layered, create exponential advantage. Think of a lock. Most people try to break it with one tool, often the wrong one. But when you combine multiple tools, discipline, communication, strategy, creativity, the lock springs open. Success is rarely about mastery of one thing. It is about weaving together complementary skills that make you irreplaceable, undeniable, and unstoppable. Acceleration happens when you stop measuring skills individually and begin layering them intentionally. Writing alone may not set you apart. Public speaking alone may not either, but combine them. Clear written communication with magnetic delivery, and suddenly you influence at a level others cannot match. Add negotiation and you build movements. Stack financial literacy with creativity and you transform ideas into empires. The old reality wants you to specialize too narrowly, to remain dependent, to be a cog. The activated self stacks skills like an architect building a tower, each layer reinforcing the next, each floor offering a wider view. The secret is not perfection in each, but functional competence multiplied across domains. The practice begins by identifying the core skill your vision demands. Then ask, what adjacent abilities would magnify this? A writer might learn psychology. An athlete might learn branding. A business builder might learn storytelling. Each addition multiplies rather than adds, because synergy between skills creates outcomes greater than their parts. Acceleration requires immersion. Dedicate focused sprints to new skills, absorbing them deeply enough to integrate, then immediately applying them in the service of your larger vision. Do not collect skills idly. Use them to reinforce momentum. Proof loops, attention economics, boundary architecture, all these chapters converge here. Skills compound when you protect your focus, allocate energy wisely, and loop proof into practice. The stack becomes your armor. When others fall because they relied on one fragile talent, you thrive because you are many-layered. The old reality will try to minimize you, to suggest you are scattered, unfocused. Ignore it. You are assembling a stack so powerful, it becomes unmatchable. Acceleration does not mean rushing. It means compounding. In a year, you can outpace what others take a decade to build. In a decade, you can create a legacy that others spend lifetimes chasing. The skill stack is the quiet engine of inevitability. With it, you don't just play the game, you redesign it. Chapter 15. Asymmetric Bets. The old reality conditions you to think linearly. Input equals output, effort equals reward. It trains you to trade time for money, to chase guaranteed results, to avoid risk at all costs. But guarantees are prisons. The activated self understands leverage. The path to exponential growth lies not in symmetrical trades, but in asymmetric bets, moves where the upside dwarfs the downside. An asymmetric bet is any action where failure costs little, but success changes everything. Writing a book that can circulate forever is asymmetric, compared to sending another email that dies in an hour. Recording a message that scales to thousands is asymmetric compared to repeating yourself in a single room. Launching a bold idea that might fail is asymmetric compared to staying silent and invisible. The old world mocks these bets because it fears them. It wants you trapped in predictable exchanges where you are easy to control, but once activated, you begin seeking asymmetry everywhere. You ask, what move could I make today that, if it succeeds, multiplies my trajectory tenfold, yet, if it fails, leaves me no worse off? Most people never ask this question. They settle for safety, confusing it for security. But safety is fragile. It evaporates the moment circumstances shift. Asymmetry, on the other hand, creates resilience. Even if 9 bets fail, 1 win repays them all 100 times. The practice requires 2 qualities: vision and courage. Vision to spot the bets others overlook. Courage to place them without needing permission. You will not win them all, but you don't need to. You only need to keep playing. Each attempt feeds momentum, and each success compounds like wildfire. Begin small. Test a bold idea publicly. Reach out to someone seemingly beyond your reach. Launch a project on minimal resources. Record your knowledge and share it freely. Each is a seed with asymmetric potential. Some will die unnoticed. Some will sprout into forests that change your entire environment. The old reality despises asymmetric bets because they disrupt its arithmetic. It thrives on keeping you predictable, trading hour for dollar, output for approval. But asymmetry makes you untouchable. You operate in a different game where one move carries the weight of 1,000. Dangerous to the old world is not the one who works hardest, but the one who plays smartest. Once you adopt asymmetry as your lens, you see opportunities everywhere. And soon, reality has no choice but to bend, because you are no longer bound by its equations. You are creating wealth, impact, and momentum that multiplies without permission. Chapter 16. Environment as Silent Partner. Every activated individual eventually realizes that willpower alone is fragile. You may rise for a day, a week, a month on the strength of sheer determination, but if the world around you contradicts your intention, sooner or later it drags you back down. The old reality understands this and designs environments to keep you obedient. Offices filled with fluorescent lights that sap vitality. Homes cluttered with reminders of past failure. Digital feeds that numb instead of awaken. To be dangerous to that system, you must craft your environment into a silent partner, an ally that enforces your activation even when your energy dips. Look closely around you. Every object, every sound, every color sends a message to your subconscious. Mess creates confusion. Symbols of failure whisper old stories. Lighting influences mood, scents influence memory. Even the placement of your chair influences your posture and therefore your signal. You thought these details were neutral, but they are not. They are active participants in your destiny. The environment is always programming you. The only question is whether you designed it or allowed it. Once activated, you refuse to live in accidental environments. You choose. You design spaces that whisper victory, remove clutter, not just for aesthetics, but to signal clarity. Place symbols of your vision where your eyes fall first thing in the morning and last thing at night. Curate soundscapes, music, tones, silence that reinforce the energy you seek. Introduce scents that trigger focus, calm, or expansion. Create lighting that feels like invitation, not interrogation. All of these are tools. All of these shape your subconscious far more powerfully than scattered bursts of motivation. The environment extends beyond your home. Look at the digital landscape you inhabit daily. Every notification is a door swinging open into someone else's agenda. Each algorithmic feed is a river carrying you toward distraction. Without architecture, you are at the mercy of machines designed to monetize your attention. Reclaim it, disable what you do not need. Replace feeds with curated inputs that reinforce your signal. Treat your phone not as a toy, but as a sacred tool, a portal for your chosen frequency. Relationships are part of your environment too. People either amplify or diminish your signal. Surround yourself with those who embody inevitability, who live in proof loops, who guard their attention like treasure. Let their frequency reinforce yours. Limit exposure to those who drain, criticize, or cling to the old reality. Not from cruelty, but from alignment. Your signal is too precious to share indiscriminately. Design is leverage. Once your environment is aligned, it carries you forward even when your willpower falters. The desk itself reminds you to create. The candle reminds you to reflect. The symbols remind you to persist. This silent partnership is what allows activation to endure through fatigue, doubt, or distraction. You are not relying on raw force. You are surrounded by allies disguised as objects, spaces, and atmospheres. The old reality cannot penetrate a designed environment. It loses its hooks when your walls, screens, and rooms no longer echo its messages. It cannot whisper compliance when every surface screams intention. When you enter such a space, your body knows, here I expand, here I move, here I am inevitable. Chapter 17. The Unavailable You. The old reality thrives on your constant availability. It trains you to answer every message, to attend every meeting, to react instantly to every beep and buzz. It conditions you to believe that responsiveness equals responsibility. But in truth, this constant availability keeps you enslaved. It makes you predictable, drained, and scattered. Once activated, you must craft a new identity, the unavailable you. Not unavailable to growth, creation, or alignment, but unavailable to anything that dilutes your signal. Availability without discernment is surrender. Each yes to triviality is a no to destiny. Each quick response trains others that your time is free, your focus disposable, your presence negotiable. The old self accepted this, the new self cannot. To become dangerous to the old reality, you must reclaim your unavailability as power. Being unavailable is not about arrogance, it is about design. You withdraw access not because you disdain others, but because you are building something larger than their demands. You decline invitations not from superiority, but from clarity. You go silent not to ignore, but to amplify. Every minute reclaimed becomes a unit of energy invested into proof loops, skill stacking, asymmetric bets. The practice begins with boundaries of communication. Establish times when you are unreachable, not by chance, but by choice. No phone, no email, no interruptions. In these windows, you are wholly owned by creation. Guard them fiercely. Announce them if needed. Let the world adapt. It will. Next, you curate presence. Stop appearing everywhere. The old reality teaches you to scatter yourself across endless rooms and platforms, chasing validation through constant exposure. The activated self chooses fewer arenas but dominates them fully. Your absence from noise increases the weight of your presence where it matters. When you finally speak, people listen because silence has made you rare. Unavailability extends to thought as well. The old self gave mental space to every opinion, every criticism, every distraction. Now you filter ruthlessly. Not every voice deserves entry. Not every thought deserves rehearsal. Train your mind to dwell only on what multiplies your signal. The result of this practice is paradoxical. As you become less available, you become more sought after. Scarcity breeds value. People feel the weight of your focus when they have it because it is no longer cheap. Opportunities shift toward you because your signal is concentrated, not diluted. The old reality cannot compete with the unavailable you. It depends on your constant engagement, your readiness to dance to its tune. When you withdraw, when you refuse to answer on demand, when you design silence into your days, you cut its strings. You are no longer its puppet. You are its master. Chapter 18. Public Signal, Private System. The old world confuses visibility with power. It pushes you to display your every move, to broadcast your process, to seek validation through exposure. But constant transparency is vulnerability. The activated self learns to separate the public signal from the private system, to show results, not mechanics, to let outcomes speak while methods remain protected. Your public signal is what the world sees. It is the image, the message, the energy you radiate outward. It tells people you are inevitable, that momentum surrounds you, that proof loops compound daily. This signal attracts allies, opportunities, resources. It builds trust and authority. But behind it lies your private system, rituals, frameworks, environments, practices that make the signal possible. These are sacred, these are guarded. Why guard them? Because systems lose power when exposed too early. The old reality loves to dissect, critique, and dilute what it does not understand. If you reveal too much of your private architecture, you invite interference. Protect your mechanisms until they are so ingrained they cannot be sabotaged. Let others see the glow of your lighthouse without handing them the blueprints. The practice is balance. Share enough to inspire, to attract, to signal momentum. Hold back enough to preserve advantage, to keep your current protected. For example, you may display the finished work but not reveal the rituals that allowed it. You may speak of growth, but keep private the exact routines that sustain it. You may showcase skill without opening your entire process to scrutiny. This is not secrecy born of fear, it is secrecy born of strategy. The old reality wants you to overexpose so it can pull threads loose. The activated self shines outward while building inward, ensuring that what fuels the fire remains untouched by wind. The paradox is this: by keeping systems private, your public signal becomes stronger. People sense mystery, resilience, depth. They see results but cannot map the mechanics, and this increases your magnetism. The world respects what it cannot fully explain. When you master this duality, you become untouchable. Your signal grows brighter, drawing opportunities, while your system remains hidden, continuing to compound power. The old reality cannot mimic what it cannot see. It cannot dismantle what it cannot touch. The public signal makes you visible. The private system makes you invincible. Together they form the shield and the sword of the activated self. Chapter 19: Conflict Mastery. The old reality trained you to fear conflict, to shrink back when challenged, to avoid tension at all costs. It taught you that peace meant silence, that agreement meant safety. But in truth, avoiding conflict only fed the machinery of your own suppression. You became a convenient pawn for stronger voices, a compliant participant in scripts you never chose. Once activated, this pattern must die. You cannot remain dangerous to the old reality if you are afraid of confrontation. Conflict mastery is not about chasing arguments or indulging aggression. It is about wielding tension as a tool for clarity, respect, and evolution. Conflict is simply energy. It is the collision of two frequencies. One of them bends, one of them holds. Most people surrender by default, mistaking withdrawal for wisdom. But avoidance creates corrosion. Resentment festers in silence. Agreements rot from within. By stepping into conflict with awareness, you claim your space as equal, as sovereign, as undeniable. Mastery begins with detachment. The old self entered conflict with panic, emotion flooding the nervous system, turning arguments into survival battles. The activated self breathes first. The breath becomes the anchor. While others escalate, you slow down. You speak deliberately, never rushing, never defending more than necessary. This calmness unnerves opponents because they expect reactivity, not precision. The next practice is truth. Conflict mastery does not mean out-shouting. It means stating reality so clearly that it cannot be ignored. Most tension dissolves when truth is spoken without apology. You do not dress it in excuses. You do not soften it into ambiguity. You say what is real, directly, cleanly. Your voice becomes a blade that cuts through fog. Respect is forged in these moments. Even enemies recognize strength when truth is delivered without fear. Opportunities arise when allies witness you stand firm. Conflict handled well attracts the right people, repels the wrong ones, and clarifies the terrain of your life. You will be tested. The old reality will send critics, skeptics, aggressors, manipulators. They will poke at you to see if the switch was real. Each encounter is training. When you do not collapse, when you remain steady, you rewire your subconscious. I am unshaken in tension. I am sovereign in collision. This imprint becomes armor. Conflict mastery does not always require words. Sometimes it is silence, maintained long enough to break patterns of domination. Sometimes it is exit, walking away without flinching, leaving the old game to collapse without your participation. Sometimes it is humor, transforming tension into lightness while still holding your ground. The key is choice. You are no longer reacting. You are designing responses that expand your power. The old self feared conflict as a destroyer. The activated self embraces it as a sculptor. Through conflict, boundaries are set, alliances are tested, truth is clarified. Mastery is not about winning arguments, it is about directing energy. When you can hold steady in conflict, you become ungovernable. The old reality realizes it cannot intimidate you, cannot manipulate you, cannot silence you, and that is when it begins to crumble. Chapter 20. Setback Alchemy. The old reality told you that setbacks were proof you were unworthy, that failure was final, that mistakes defined you. It used this story to keep you paralyzed, terrified of trying, forever trapped in hesitation. But activation transforms this lie. Once switched on, you understand setbacks for what they truly are, raw material for alchemy. Every failure is not an end but an ingredient. Every mistake is not proof of weakness, but a hidden deposit of strength waiting to be refined. Setback alchemy begins with reframing. The unactivated self sees collapse as humiliation. The activated self sees collapse as information. The failed launch reveals missing structure. The rejection illuminates misaligned approach. The loss teaches resilience. Pain becomes data. Data becomes strategy. Strategy becomes advancement. Nothing is wasted when you train yourself to transmute. Think of gold hidden in stone. To the untrained eye, the stone is useless rubble. To the alchemist, it is treasure waiting to be extracted. Your setbacks are such stones. They arrive heavy, unwelcome, jagged, but within them are insights no success could have revealed. The deeper the disappointment, the greater the density of potential wisdom inside. The practice is brutal honesty. Do not sugarcoat the failure. Examine it clinically. Write down exactly what happened, what you did, what the outcome was. Then strip away emotion until only mechanics remain. Ask, where did I hesitate? Where did I ignore feedback? Where did I act from fear instead of inevitability? These questions dig into the stone, cracking it open to reveal the ore within. Next, ritualize the transmutation. For every setback, record one lesson, one shift, one new principle. Then apply it immediately. Do not wait. Transformation requires action. By implementing the lesson right away, you seal the alchemy into your nervous system. This is how failure becomes forward movement instead of a repeating cycle. Over time, you develop what others will mistake for resilience. They will see you fall and rise quickly, never broken, always learning. But it is not resilience, it is alchemy. You no longer fear failure because you know it cannot harm you. It can only feed you. Each setback strengthens your proof loops, sharpens your skill stack, and expands your inevitability. The old reality fears this transformation. It relies on your aversion to failure. It needs you to collapse under mistakes so you never build momentum. When you begin turning every defeat into fuel, it has no power left. You become unstoppable because every attempt, successful or not, compounds into your evolution. Remember, setbacks are not detours. They are accelerants disguised as obstacles. Once you master alchemy, you will welcome them. Each one is a doorway into deeper strength, a forge where you harden into something indestructible. To the old reality, this makes you terrifying. To yourself, it makes you free. Chapter 21. Ethical power. Power without ethics is poison. The old reality displays this daily. Leaders who manipulate, corporations that exploit, systems that dominate. It is why so many fear power itself, mistaking it for corruption. But the truth is that power is neutral. It is the amplifier of intention. In the wrong hands, it destroys. In the right hands, it liberates. Once activated, you must choose your relationship to power with absolute clarity. You must decide not only to wield it, but to wield it cleanly. Ethical power begins with self-respect. If you cannot respect yourself, you will abuse yourself, and eventually, you will abuse others. Activation requires a commitment to hold your standards fiercely. You no longer betray your own word, no longer tolerate your own excuses, no longer erode your signal with quiet self-betrayals. Integrity with yourself is the foundation. Without it, any external power will collapse. Next, ethical power is stewardship. You stop seeing authority as domination and start seeing it as guardianship. People who align with you are not pawns but allies. Resources that flow to you are not toys but tools. Influence you gain is not for vanity but for direction. Every ounce of power you hold is sacred responsibility. Ethical power also demands transparency of intention. You may not reveal your private systems, but you must be clear about why you act. Manipulation thrives on hidden agendas. Integrity thrives on visible motives. When your intentions are clean, even those who disagree with you cannot deny your clarity. The practice is rigorous. Test yourself constantly. When opportunities arise, ask, does this serve only me, or does it elevate others too? When influence expands, ask, am I wielding this to create or to control? When you feel the temptation to exploit, remind yourself that corruption is always the old reality in disguise, whispering to drag you back. The paradox is powerful. Ethical power is more magnetic than manipulation. People sense safety around you. They align willingly. Trust compounds into loyalty. Opportunities multiply because others know that proximity to you does not mean extraction but elevation. In time, this creates networks stronger than fear, empires built on respect rather than coercion. The old reality will sneer. It will tell you that kindness is weakness, that ruthlessness is strength, but you know the truth. Corruption burns itself out. Manipulation breeds collapse. Ethical power is sustainable, renewable, infinite. It makes you dangerous not only because you cannot be corrupted, but because others cannot predict you. They expect selfishness. They expect exploitation. When you rise clean instead, they have no defense. To carry ethical power is to embody the rarest signal of all, strength that serves. It is to prove that danger to the old world does not mean harm. It means liberation. It means you carry a sword sharp enough to cut lies, but steady enough never to wound without purpose. With such power, you will not only dismantle the old reality, you will design a new one. Chapter 22. Money as Momentum. The old reality shackled you to the illusion that money is scarce, that it must be hoarded, that it is the gatekeeper to freedom. It convinced you that money is earned only through grueling trade, hour for dollar, life for scraps. That story was designed to keep you tame, predictable, and endlessly working for someone else's vision. Once activated, you discover the truth. Money is not merely currency. It is momentum. It is energy that amplifies direction. It is the fuel that magnifies your signal. The unactivated self fears money. It treats it with superstition, alternately craving it and resenting it. But the activated self reframes money as neutral. It is not moral or immoral. It is not friend or foe. It is an accelerant. In the hands of hesitation, it dissipates into nothing. In the hands of clarity, it multiplies impact. When you shift your perspective from scarcity to momentum, you stop asking, "Do I have enough?" and start asking, "How can this accelerate what I am building?" Momentum requires flow. Money trapped in fear stagnates. The old self clung to every coin, paralyzed by the thought of loss. But stagnation is loss. The activated self moves money intentionally, sending it where it multiplies, into skills, into systems, into tools, into relationships that expand capacity. Each dollar becomes a soldier marching toward inevitability. When deployed with precision, those soldiers return with allies. The practice begins with clarity of direction. You cannot create momentum if you do not know where you are heading. Define your vision, then allocate money toward its acceleration. If your signal requires mastery, invest in learning. If your proof loops require exposure, invest in platforms. If your environment requires reinforcement, invest in design. Each act converts static currency into kinetic energy. Momentum also demands stewardship. You must track your flow, not obsessively but intentionally. Know where your money moves, not as an accountant, but as a commander watching troops. Money wasted on distraction dilutes momentum. Money invested in alignment compounds momentum. The difference is not in the amount, but in the aim. A small sum directed with precision creates more acceleration than a large sum scattered aimlessly. The old reality will tempt you to spend for validation, to prove worth through possessions, to chase the image of wealth instead of the power of it. Resist. Momentum is not created by flashy display, but by quiet multiplication. Let others waste energy on appearances. You will build velocity through intention. Over time, your relationship with money transforms from fear into confidence. You no longer see it as gatekeeper, but as partner. You attract more of it, not by chasing, but by becoming the kind of person money trusts to move through. The world gives resources to those who know how to multiply them. Your clarity, your proof loops, your boundaries signal that you are such a person. Money begins to flow to you naturally, like rivers finding their way to the sea. The dangerous truth is this: once you understand money as momentum, the old reality loses its final leash. It cannot terrify you with scarcity. It cannot distract you with glitter. You are no longer its debtor, its laborer, its supplicant. You are a commander, directing the flow of energy into the inevitability of your vision. That is why you become dangerous. Not because you worship money, but because you master it. Chapter 23, Platform of Proof. The old self worked tirelessly in silence, hoping someone would notice, praying that effort alone would be rewarded. The old reality thrived on this, feeding on invisible labor, extracting value while withholding recognition. But once activated, you cannot afford invisibility. You must build a platform of proof, a stage, physical or digital, where your results, your growth, your inevitability are made visible. Not to beg for validation, but to anchor your reality so deeply that others cannot deny it. Proof loops, when private, strengthen your subconscious, but proof, when public, reshapes the world around you. The platform of proof is the bridge between inner activation and outer authority. It signals, I am not only becoming, I am already arriving. It magnetizes allies, opportunities, and resources that would never have found you if you remained hidden. The old world may whisper that visibility is vanity, that humility means silence. Do not be deceived. Silence in the wrong places is erasure. Visibility is not arrogance, it is evidence. Your platform is not for showing off. It is for anchoring proof in collective consciousness. People believe what they can see. Give them something undeniable. The practice begins by choosing your arena. For some, it is the written word. For others, it is speaking, creating, building, teaching. The medium matters less than the consistency. You must show your evolution, your wins, your processes of growth. Each post, each project, each artifact becomes a stone in the foundation of your inevitability. Do not wait for perfection. Perfection is the lie of the old reality, designed to keep you silent. Share progress, not polish. Share growth, not only outcomes. Let your platform reflect the journey, and it will resonate more deeply than flawless facades. Proof is powerful because it is real. Consistency is key. One burst of visibility means little. A rhythm of evidence creates gravity. Week by week, your platform becomes a signal tower, broadcasting your activation across distance. Allies will find you. Opportunities will seek you. Those who doubted will be forced to reconcile your presence. Your platform also protects you. In a world of noise, documented proof becomes armor against skepticism. You do not need to argue your worth. Your body of evidence speaks louder than words. It becomes your resume, your reputation, your gravitational field. The old reality will resist. It will try to shame you back into silence. It will send critics, scoffers, distractions. But remember, criticism is proof of visibility, and visibility is proof of danger to the old system. Stay the course. Build your tower. Let it shine. In time, your platform becomes more than personal. It becomes communal. Others see your proof and find permission to activate their own. Your stage becomes a beacon. Your story becomes a map. This is how movements begin. One platform of proof multiplied across countless lives. This is why you must build it. Not for vanity, but for inevitability. Your activation is not complete until it becomes visible. Your platform is the altar where private transformation becomes public power. Chapter 24, Operating in Unknowns. The old reality paralyzed you with uncertainty. It demanded guarantees before action, maps before journeys, clarity before steps. It told you the unknown was dangerous, that risk was reckless, that you must wait until you are sure. This lie kept you frozen. But activation thrives in uncertainty. Once activated, you learn to operate in unknowns with confidence, to move without maps, to walk into fog, knowing that clarity appears only to those in motion. Operating in unknowns begins with trust in yourself. The unactivated self waits for external validation, needing signs, signals, and safety nets. The activated self moves with the inner knowing that whatever arises, you will adapt. Certainty is not in circumstances but in capacity. You no longer need the world to be predictable when you have trained yourself to be unshakable. The unknown is not a void. It is a field of infinite possibilities waiting for decision to collapse them into form. When you hesitate, possibilities remain abstract. When you move, they crystallize. The first step is always into mist. The second reveals ground. The third unveils direction. The map writes itself beneath your feet. The practice is micro-experimentation. Do not wait for the perfect plan. Launch small, test quickly, adjust relentlessly. Each experiment generates feedback, and feedback is clarity. This is how entrepreneurs build empires. How artists create movements, how explorers chart continents. They move first, learn fast, and adapt faster. You must adopt the same rhythm. Fear will whisper. The old reality will scream. It will remind you of past failures, invent imaginary disasters, parade every reason to wait. Ignore it. Fear is only the echo of the old self, desperate to keep you tethered. The unknown is not your enemy, it is your playground. Operating in unknowns does not mean recklessness, it means frameworks. Develop principles that guide you regardless of terrain. Act quickly on reversible decisions. Pause only on the irreversible. Trust your proof loops. Lean on your skill stack. Use your boundaries to protect your energy while you test. These frameworks allow you to move confidently, even when the road is invisible. The reward of this practice is speed. While others wait for certainty, you are already building. While they debate risks, you are harvesting feedback. While they cling to safety, you are creating inevitability. Over time, the gap becomes unbridgeable. You will seem lucky, prophetic, untouchable. But the truth is simpler. You mastered the unknown by refusing to fear it. The old reality cannot survive this mastery. It needs you frozen by uncertainty, trapped in analysis, begging for maps that never arrive. When you walk anyway, when you trust your capacity more than their illusions of safety, you escape their control forever. Operating in unknowns is the ultimate activation. It is choosing freedom over fear, movement over paralysis, creation over waiting. It is the art of walking into fog with the certainty that light will meet you there. Chapter 25. Expansion without leakage. Growth is a dangerous moment. The old reality waits here like a predator in tall grass, ready to pounce the moment you gain ground. It knows expansion creates vulnerability, new opportunities, new attention, new demands. If you are not careful, the very momentum you worked to build becomes the trap that destroys you. This is why expansion without leakage is essential. It is the art of multiplying power while ensuring none of it escapes through cracks. The unactivated self confuses expansion with chaos. It says yes to everything, takes on too much, spreads too thin. It mistakes busyness for progress. But activation demands precision. Expansion must be layered deliberately, like the construction of a cathedral. Every stone placed with intention, every arch designed to bear weight. Otherwise, the structure collapses under its own growth. Leakage begins small, a missed ritual here, a boundary broken there, an energy drain disguised as opportunity. These micro-leaks compound until the signal weakens. You feel tired, scattered, overwhelmed. This is not because you are incapable. It is because you let expansion outpace discipline. To prevent this, you must engineer systems that carry growth without bleeding energy. The first practice is delegation with discernment. Not all tasks are yours to hold. The old self clung to control, terrified that letting go meant losing power. The activated self understands that holding everything guarantees collapse. You must entrust parts of the vision to others, but only to those aligned with your signal. Delegation without discernment is leakage. Delegation with clarity is multiplication. The second practice is structural rhythm. Expansion requires cycles, times of acceleration, times of integration. The old world taught you to sprint endlessly, to confuse exhaustion with excellence. That is a trap. True expansion alternates, surges of action followed by consolidation. Build the rhythm into your schedule. Review weeks, recalibration days, nights of silence after storms of execution. Without rhythm, expansion burns out. With rhythm, expansion compounds. The third practice is financial discipline. With growth comes more money, more options, more temptation. Leakage here is deadly. Guard against indulgence disguised as success. Invest in assets, in systems, in capacity. Let the surplus of expansion strengthen the foundation rather than scatter into displays. Money flowing out aimlessly is momentum lost. Money directed with precision is momentum amplified. Finally, expansion without leakage requires relentless alignment checks. Every new opportunity, every invitation, every idea must pass through the filter. Does this multiply my inevitability, or does it dilute it? The old self said yes from fear of missing out. The activated self says yes only when the signal strengthens. Every no becomes an act of preservation. Every yes an act of acceleration. When you expand without leakage, something remarkable happens. Growth no longer feels like strain. It feels like flow. Systems carry weight. Boundaries preserve energy. Money compounds instead of leaks. You remain calm at heights that would have once shattered you. This calmness terrifies the old reality. It cannot destabilize you. It cannot overload you. You are expanding in strength, not scattering in weakness. Expansion is not dangerous when disciplined. It is dangerous when blind. Seal the leaks, design the systems, Trust the rhythm, and expansion becomes inevitable. Your cathedral rises, your light shines brighter, and the old reality, watching from the shadows, realizes it has lost its last chance to break you. Chapter 26. The Irreversible Identity. Activation begins with a switch, but permanence requires identity. You can flip the switch and move for days or weeks on energy alone, but unless your very sense of self changes, the old reality will lure you back. Identity is gravity. It pulls you toward whatever story you have accepted about who you are. To remain dangerous, you must create an irreversible identity, one so deeply wired into your subconscious that retreat becomes impossible. The unactivated self-thought identity was fixed. I am shy. I am unlucky. I am bad with money. These phrases were not reflections, but prisons. The old reality encouraged them because each repetition anchored you to the small version of yourself. But activation reveals identity as fluid, programmable, rewritable. You can sculpt it with rituals, proof loops, and repetition until it becomes unshakable. The process begins with destruction. You must dismantle the old self by refusing to speak its phrases ever again. Catch them as they emerge. Replace them immediately. Do not joke about failure. Do not rehearse your limitations. Each repetition strengthens chains. Each refusal weakens them. Next comes construction. Design your new identity as if it were already real. Write it in present tense. Speak it daily. Visualize it nightly. Identity is not built by wishing, but by rehearsal. The subconscious does not distinguish between practice and reality. It only learns through repetition. The more often you embody the new identity, the faster it cements. Proof loops accelerate the process. When your actions align with the new story, you generate evidence. Evidence makes the identity believable. Belief makes it inevitable. A single act, publishing work, standing firm in conflict, investing with confidence, can shift how you see yourself forever. The key is to stack these acts until the old identity has no foothold left. Ritual is the final seal. Create practices that remind you daily of who you are becoming. The mirror ritual, the morning declaration, the nightly visualization, these are not superstition. They are programming. Each repetition deepens the neural grooves until the identity is no longer a performance, but a reality. When identity becomes irreversible, relapse is impossible. You may stumble, but you do not return. The old self feels foreign, absurd, unwearable. You cannot imagine shrinking into it again because the gravity of the new identity is too strong. This terrifies the old reality. It survives by pulling you back into old roles. But once identity is irreversible, you are untouchable. You no longer act from motivation. You act from nature. You no longer force change. You are change. The old world has no leverage over someone who has rewritten their essence. The irreversible identity is the true graduation of activation. It is the moment you stop trying to become and start simply being. From here, growth is not fragile. It is inevitable. And inevitability is the most dangerous state of all. Chapter 27. Never dim again. There is a pattern familiar to all who attempt transformation. The spark ignites, the fire burns, but then slowly, imperceptibly, it fades. Life intrudes, doubt returns. The old self whispers, the light dims. The old reality waits patiently for this moment because it knows most will fall here. They will flash brightly for a season, then return quietly to compliance. But you are not most. You did not activate to flicker. You activated to burn forever. Never dim again is your vow, also your system, your lifelong maintenance of the switch. The unactivated self-thought intensity was enough. It surged in bursts, then collapsed. But permanence is not built on bursts. It is built on rhythm. Just as a heartbeat sustains life, your practices must sustain your activation. This is not about chasing constant peak states, but about cultivating steady power that does not fade. The first pillar is audit. Regularly examine your life for leaks, distractions, and regressions. Weekly, monthly, yearly, set checkpoints where you ask, am I aligned? Am I expanding? Where am I slipping? This honesty prevents drift. You catch dimming before it becomes darkness. The second pillar is renewal. Burnout is a trick of the old reality. It convinces you that exhaustion means failure. In truth, exhaustion means you ignored cycles of rest. Build rituals of renewal, silence, solitude, reflection, nature. Protect these as fiercely as work. Renewal is not weakness, it is fuel. Without it, every fire fades. With it, your flame grows steady. The third pillar is community. Isolation dims the brightest lights. You must surround yourself with others who are also activated, whose very presence reignites you when you falter. This is not dependency but resonance. Together flames grow hotter, alone flames flicker. Choose carefully, but choose. The fourth pillar is vision. Stagnation is dimming in disguise. You must always have a horizon, something beyond the current conquest. The old self becomes complacent. The activated self expands endlessly. Set new targets, not to prove worth, but to keep the current flowing. Without vision, the flame loses oxygen. With vision, it roars. Finally, the vow itself. Never dim again is not a casual phrase. It is a promise you make to yourself in sacred moments of clarity. Write it, speak it, inscribe it into your rituals. Let it echo when doubt whispers, when fatigue presses, when the old world tempts you back. The vow becomes armor, protecting your flame from erosion. When you live this way, something shifts. People notice your consistency. They trust your fire not because it blazes occasionally, but because it never fades. You become the rarest thing in the old reality, reliable power. That reliability is dangerous because the system depends on your inconsistency. It survives on your dimming. When you refuse to dim, you become untouchable. Never dim again is not about perfection. You will stumble, you will falter, but you will never extinguish. You will rise each time, brighter, steadier. Your flame will become a beacon, guiding others, terrifying the old world, illuminating paths that were hidden. This is your destiny once activated. This is your power. You were not born to flicker. You were born to burn forever. Chapter 28, The Synchronicity Orchestrator. Once activated, you begin to notice something strange. Events align with eerie precision. A thought you had yesterday appears as an opportunity today. A person you needed to meet shows up by chance. A symbol from a dream repeats in the real world. The old self dismisses these as coincidences, but the activated self understands. Synchronicity is not random. It is orchestration. When your frequency sharpens, reality responds by arranging itself around you. You become the conductor of unseen patterns, directing the dance between thought and manifestation. The old reality trained you to ignore synchronicity, to laugh it off, to cling only to what could be measured. That was its strategy to keep you blind. But synchronicities are not illusions. They are confirmations. They are proof that your signal is interacting with the field, that the universe is bending to meet you halfway. The more you notice them, the more they multiply. Attention is the amplifier. The practice of orchestration begins with awareness. Carry the question, what is reality showing me right now? Train your perception to catch the subtle alignments. A phrase repeated in different contexts, a symbol appearing across mediums, a random conversation containing exactly the answer you sought. Write them down, acknowledge them. The moment you recognize synchronicity, you signal readiness for more. Next, you must engage intention. Synchronicity is not passive, it can be invited. Before sleep, request guidance. Before a meeting, request confirmation. Before a decision, request a sign. This is not superstition, it is cooperation. Your subconscious communicates through symbols, and the universe echoes them in your reality. By asking, you open the channel wider. But orchestration requires discipline. Not every event is a sign. Not every coincidence carries meaning. The skill lies in discernment. Ask yourself, does this synchronicity align with my inevitability, or is it noise designed to distract me? The old reality will try to hijack symbols to pull you off course. The activated self filters carefully, recognizing only what strengthens the signal. As you deepen this practice, synchronicities become chains. One alignment leads to another, creating pathways you could never have planned. Entire careers shift, relationships blossom, destinies accelerate, all because you followed the breadcrumbs. This is orchestration, not you controlling reality, but you collaborating with it, letting its intelligence weave through your choices. The old world fears this mastery. It relies on linear logic, predictable steps, measurable plans. But you are no longer bound by linearity. You operate in spirals, in echoes, in patterns that others cannot see. To them, your life looks enchanted. To you, it is simply synchronized. The more you trust the orchestration, the more fluid your journey becomes. Fear diminishes because you know signs will appear. Doubt fades because you know guidance will arrive. You move with confidence, not because you know every step, but because you know the conductor is with you, playing your symphony in real time. Synchronicity is the music of inevitability. Once you learn to orchestrate it, you will never feel alone again. Reality itself becomes your ally, whispering through symbols, arranging through coincidences, guiding through patterns. And the old reality, built on the lie of randomness, collapses as you dance gracefully through the music it cannot hear. Chapter 29, The Master Key Holder. Activation is a doorway. Synchronicity is music. Expansion is rhythm. But beneath them all lies a deeper truth. You are not only participant, you are the architect. The old reality hides this truth, convincing you that power resides outside, in systems, leaders, institutions. It wants you to believe you are at the mercy of circumstances. But once activated, you discover what terrifies the old world most. You are the master key holder. The master key is consciousness itself. Every lock, fear, scarcity, hesitation, uncertainty can be opened with it. Every barrier dissolves when you recognize that reality flows from awareness. You are not a pawn in a game. You are the field in which the game is played. This realization is dangerous because it cannot be unlearned. Once you know you will hold the master key, no door can trap you. The unactivated self seeks keys everywhere: money, status, approval, permission. It collects them desperately, thinking one of them will finally unlock freedom. But freedom is not given, it is remembered. The activated self stops searching for external keys and reaches inward. The key has always been there, hidden beneath layers of programming. When you turn it, everything shifts. This turning begins with recognition. Pause and declare, I am the source. Not metaphorically, not philosophically, but literally. Your thoughts shape your feelings. Your feelings shape your actions. Your actions shape your world. When you change the origin, the outcomes must follow. This is the key turning in the lock. The next step is ownership. Stop outsourcing responsibility. Stop blaming, excusing, waiting. These are signs of someone who has forgotten they hold the key. The activated self owns every outcome: success, failure, growth, delay, as creation. Ownership is not about guilt. It is about power. The moment you accept authorship, you regain control of the script. Then comes practice. Keys must be used. Begin small. Notice one area where you feel powerless. Reframe it. If I am the source, What shift within me would alter this? Then act on the answer. Each use strengthens the memory. You hold the key. Over time, doors that once felt sealed now open easily. Obstacles lose their intimidation. Locks lose their permanence. Being the master key holder does not mean life becomes effortless. It means nothing is inaccessible. It means you always carry the capacity to shift, to adapt, to create. Fear diminishes because you know you can unlock the way forward. Doubt fades because you know the lock is not final. The old reality cannot tolerate this awareness. It depends on you believing in locks. It thrives on your obedience to imaginary doors. When you realize you are the key, the entire prison dissolves. You walk out, not because the bars bent, but because they were never locked in the first place. To hold the master key is to live awake. It is to see reality not as fixed, but as malleable, not as given, but as created. It is to know with quiet certainty that you are never trapped. And when you live this way, you become the most dangerous kind of person, the one who cannot be controlled. Chapter 30. The Awakened Dreamer's Graduation. The journey began with a switch, a tremor in the nervous system, a moment of recognition. You have walked through conflict, built proof loops, stacked skills, orchestrated synchronicities, wielded power with ethics, expanded without leakage, forged identity, and carried the vow to never dim again. And now you arrive here, the graduation of the awakened dreamer. Graduation is not an ending. It is integration. It is the weaving together of every thread into a single fabric, no longer a patchwork of practices, but a seamless state of being. The awakened dreamer does not live in compartments. Ritual here, practice there, but in flow. Every breath, every word, every action radiates the activated frequency. It is not something you do. It is who you are. The old self strove for activation. It reached, struggled, doubted. The awakened dreamer simply lives it. Proof is no longer sought. It is constant. Boundaries are no longer forced. They are natural. Synchronicity is no longer surprising. It is expected. Power is no longer feared. It is stewarded. You have crossed the threshold where activation is not fragile but permanent. Graduation requires one final shift. Release. You must release the identity of the seeker, the struggler, the one who was becoming. You are no longer becoming, are being. This release is subtle but profound. The old reality will try to pull you back with nostalgia, with reminders of the struggle, with temptations to dim, but you smile at these ghosts, knowing they no longer belong. As an awakened dreamer, you understand sleep differently. It is no longer unconsciousness, but communion. Every night you enter the field of infinite possibility with intention, shaping reality through dreams, reinforcing your inevitability. Every day you wake not into randomness, but into the architecture you designed. Night and day merge into one continuous act of creation. This state is rare and it is feared. The old reality trembles when someone reaches graduation, because nothing can pull you back once integration is complete. You become a beacon, a living contradiction to its lies. Your very presence awakens others, reminding them of their dormant switch. Graduation is not a crown to wear. It is a responsibility to embody. You carry your fire not for vanity, but for illumination. You live not only for yourself, but as proof for others. Every word, every act, every silence ripples outward, shifting collective reality. You are now the awakened dreamer, one who knows the power of the subconscious, one who wields language as law, one who turns friction into fuel, one who never dims. Your life is no longer a story written by others. It is a dream authored by your own hand, projected into the waking world. The final lesson is simple. Stay awake. Graduation is not a destination. It is a continuous act of remembering, of refusing to fall asleep in the old patterns. Stay awake and you will remain free. Stay awake and your signal will never fade. Stay awake and you will forever be dangerous to the old reality. And so you step forward, not as student, but as master, not as seeker, but as source. The dream is awake. The dreamer is sovereign. The switch is permanent. The graduation is complete. Chapter 31, The Architecture of Influence. Influence is not about volume. It is not about shouting louder, marketing harder, or collecting more followers. Those are surface illusions, the tricks of the old reality designed to confuse you into chasing applause instead of building authority. Influence in its truest form is architecture. It is the deliberate design of how your presence alters the structures around you. Once activated, you no longer stumble into influence. You create it brick by brick, beam by beam, until your very existence reshapes the environments you enter. The old self mistook influence for charisma or manipulation. It believed influence was given by luck, birth, or circumstance. But activation reveals that influence is structural. It emerges from alignment, consistency, and proof. Every word you speak is a pillar. Every action you repeat is a beam. Every boundary you enforce is a wall. People walk into the house of your being and immediately know whether it is sturdy or fragile. If it is sturdy, they lean on it, they trust it, they let it shape them. The practice of architectural influence begins with congruence. The unactivated self fractured, saying one thing, doing another, thinking something else entirely. That fracture leaks influence. The activated self closes the gaps. Thought, word, action, energy, all aligned. People feel this alignment. They cannot always explain why they trust you, but they do. Your structure holds. The next layer is presence. Influence is not in the noise you make, but in the stillness you carry. Rooms bend toward those who do not scramble for attention, but radiate certainty. The unactivated self-filled silence with chatter, hoping to be noticed. The activated self allows silence to work, understanding that stillness is louder than desperation. Proof loops extend the architecture outward. Influence multiplies when your results are undeniable. One demonstration of integrity creates trust. 10 demonstrations create loyalty. 100 demonstrations create legend. Influence is never granted at once. It compounds like interest, each act of alignment reinforcing the structure until it towers above the landscape. Finally, influence requires stewardship. The old reality corrupted influence, turning it into control. But true influence does not coerce, it inspires. It does not enslave, it liberates. Architecture of influence is not designed to trap people inside, but to invite them into a larger space of possibility. Your role is not to dominate, but to expand. As your architecture solidifies, you will notice people adapting to your structure without resistance. They will change language around you. They will shift energy to match yours. They will adopt higher standards simply because your presence makes lower ones impossible. This is influence at its highest. When transformation radiates from you naturally, without force, the old reality fears this more than anything. Its systems rely on centralized control. When individuals build their own architecture of influence, control fractures. People awaken not because they were persuaded, but because they were invited into a structure too solid to ignore. This is why influence, when activated, is dangerous. Not because it destroys, but because it rebuilds. You are no longer a voice begging to be heard. You are a cathedral others cannot help but enter. That is the architecture of influence. Chapter 32, The Horizon of Evolution. Activation is not a destination, it is a doorway. The old self believed in endpoints, graduation, promotion, recognition, arrival. It thought the journey would end with some final achievement, some permanent crown. The old reality encouraged this illusion. because those who believe they have arrived stop growing, stop questioning, stop expanding. They become predictable again. But once activated, you understand the truth. There is no final arrival. There is only the horizon of evolution. The horizon is always ahead, always expanding. You may reach what once seemed impossible, but the moment you do, you glimpse something greater. This is not failure, it is freedom. The horizon ensures you never stagnate. It ensures your fire never burns out. It ensures your life remains a continuous unfolding of higher frequencies. The practice of horizon living begins with surrender. You must release the idea of completion. You will never be finished, and that is sacred. Every achievement is not the end of the story, but a stepping stone. Celebrate it, yes, but do not camp there. Look again toward the horizon. Ask, what wants to emerge next? What am I being called to become now? Evolution demands curiosity. The old self feared the unknown, clinging to what it mastered. The activated self leans forward eagerly, seeking the edges of its own capacity. Curiosity becomes your compass. The question, what else is possible, becomes your constant companion. The horizon also requires humility. You may be master in one domain, but at the edge, you are student again. This humility is not weakness, but fuel. It keeps you open, malleable, ready to grow beyond your current form. Without humility, you ossify. With humility, you expand endlessly. You will notice that the horizon often arrives disguised as discomfort. New levels feel awkward, uncertain, even threatening. The old self interprets this as danger and retreats. The activated self interprets it as invitation and steps forward. Each discomfort is a doorway. Each doorway opens into evolution. The horizon of evolution is not only personal, it is collective. As you evolve, you create ripples that lift others. Your expansion gives permission for theirs. Movements are born when enough individuals refuse to stop at arrival, when they keep pressing toward the horizon together. This is how cultures transform, how systems dissolve, how realities shift. The old reality cannot survive horizon thinkers. It depends on people stopping, declaring themselves finished, falling asleep in comfort. Horizon living ensures you remain awake, dangerous, untamed. You will never again be caged by achievement or lulled by success. You will always be stretching, expanding, creating. The horizon is infinite, that is the beauty. You will never run out of evolution. You will never exhaust possibility. You are not a fixed being reaching an end. You are a river flowing forever, always moving, always discovering, always becoming. That is the horizon. That is your destiny. Chapter 33. The Eternal Signal. The journey through activation has brought you here, not to an ending, but to a revelation. Beneath every practice, every ritual, every chapter lies one truth. You are a signal, not a body carrying a mind, not a name carrying an identity, a signal, pure frequency, eternal, indestructible. That signal is the force that terrifies the old reality, because once you remember it, you cannot be dimmed, delayed, or destroyed. The eternal signal is the source. It existed before your fears, before your stories, before your circumstances. It will exist long after. It is not shaken by setbacks. It is not broken by conflict. It is not dependent on external validation. It is the current of your being, steady and infinite. Activation is simply remembering it, tuning to it, amplifying it until it resonates through every corner of your life. The old self thought the signal was fragile, temporary, easily lost. That illusion created dependency, despair, and doubt. But the truth is this: the signal never dies. You may forget it. You may bury it beneath noise, fear, distraction, but it is always there, waiting. Each ritual, each practice, each moment of clarity has been about clearing the interference, revealing what was never gone. Living as the eternal signal means embodying consistency. You no longer chase states. you carry them. You no longer fear endings, you trust cycles. You no longer beg for permission, you transmit authority. Your presence becomes enough. Your being becomes proof. The practice is simple. Remember, when fear whispers, remember. When doubt presses, remember. When setbacks arrive, remember. Each remembering strengthens the signal until forgetting becomes impossible. You live awake, broadcasting inevitability, orchestrating synchronicity, wielding power ethically, expanding without leakage, guiding others by resonance. And this is the true danger to the old reality. Systems built on fear cannot withstand individuals who remember their eternal signal. They cannot be manipulated because they do not seek external validation. They cannot be silenced because their presence itself speaks louder than words. They cannot be broken because they know they were never fragile. The eternal signal is your legacy. It is not in buildings or titles, but in the frequency you transmit into the world. It outlives you, echoing through those you touch, amplifying in those you awaken, resonating in the collective field. You are not merely one life, you are a wave moving through eternity. Graduation was not an end. Horizon was not an end. This chapter is not an end. The eternal signal has no end. It only amplifies, expands, evolves. Your task is not to protect it. It cannot be harmed. Your task is to embody it so fully that the old reality no longer exists in your presence. And so you stand, dangerous and awake, radiating a signal that was always yours. The old world trembles because it knows it cannot stop what is eternal. You do not merely live in reality, you transmit it. You do not merely adapt to the world, you shape it. You are the eternal signal, and nothing, no system, no setback, no shadow can ever silence you again. Chapter 34, The Living Transmission. There comes a moment after activation when you realize your work is no longer just for you. At first, everything was survival. You were clawing your way out of the old reality, dismantling its lies, building your strength, stacking your skills. Every ritual was about protecting your signal, guarding your fire, establishing boundaries. But once that foundation is unshakable, you begin to notice something. People around you are changing, not because you teach, not because you preach, but because you transmit. You are no longer a student whispering mantras to yourself. You are a living transmission. The old self tried to convince others with words alone, with arguments and explanations, but words spoken without signal rarely penetrate. They bounce off the armor of doubt. The activated self doesn't need persuasion. Its frequency speaks louder than explanations ever could. People feel it in your presence. They notice it in your calmness during chaos, in your certainty during confusion, in your refusal to shrink when challenged. You radiate inevitability. You embody proof. You are the message. Transmission happens through resonance. Human beings are tuning forks. When someone carrying a strong, clear frequency enters the room, others begin to harmonize without even realizing it. Their posture shifts, their tone softens, their thoughts expand. This is why your presence now matters more than your arguments. You are rewriting the environment simply by standing in it. The practice of transmission is not performance. It is authenticity. The unactivated self still feels the need to exaggerate, to display, to seek attention. But performance drains signal. Transmission amplifies it. You transmit most powerfully when you are not trying to convince anyone, when you are simply anchored in your truth. Silence, when rooted in alignment, speaks louder than speeches. A single glance from someone who knows who they are carries more weight than 1,000 words from someone still searching. Living transmission requires discipline, because people will test you. They will watch for cracks. They will wait for inconsistency to excuse their own hesitation. Your task is not perfection, but consistency. You do not need to be flawless, but you must be steady. You must return to your practices, keep your boundaries, and honor your rituals. Every time you do, your transmission strengthens. Every time you waver, you feel the broadcast weaken. As your signal radiates, people will seek you out. Some will come for wisdom, others will come simply to stand in your presence, to feel what it's like to remember themselves. This is not a burden, but a responsibility. Transmission is never about domination. It is not about gathering followers or playing guru. It is about holding frequency so others can remember their own. You are not their source. You are their mirror. This terrifies the old reality. It thrives on broken frequencies, on scattered signals, on people drowning in static. A single activated individual disrupts this because their resonance spreads. One flame ignites another. One tuning fork shifts a whole choir. The old world cannot stop this chain reaction. It cannot silence a transmission once it begins multiplying. To be a living transmission means to recognize yourself as a lighthouse. You don't chase ships. You don't scream across the water. You stand tall. You stay lit. And those ready for safe harbor navigate by your beam. Some will arrive, some will not. But your duty is not to chase, it is to shine. And so you live no longer only for your own survival, but as a signal that others can align with. Your life becomes a frequency, your actions become sermons, your silence becomes teaching. You are no longer just awake, you are awakening. That is the living transmission. Chapter 35. The Dangerous Legacy. Every chapter before this has been about building, protecting, amplifying. But the question that remains is this: what endures? The old reality will try to outlast you, waiting for your signal to fade when your body grows tired. It believes its systems are eternal and that your activation is temporary, but it is wrong. What you leave behind is not material, not a possession, not a title. What you leave is a dangerous legacy, the continuation of your frequency through those you touched, the ripple of your transmission through time. Legacy is not built by accident. The unactivated self leaves only fragments, half-lived dreams, unspoken truths, forgotten desires. The activated self builds legacy intentionally, knowing every choice plants seeds in the soil of the future. You will not live forever, but your signal can. The question is, what will it carry when you are gone? A dangerous legacy begins with embodiment. People remember not what you said, but how you lived. They will remember the strength of your boundaries, the way you carried inevitability, the calmness you brought into storms. These memories become imprints in their nervous systems, quiet blueprints for their own activation. That is legacy. The invisible map you leave behind, etched into the lives you touched. The second element of legacy is contribution. What structures did you build that outlast you? A platform of proof, a body of work, a system, a book, a community. Contribution is the crystallization of your signal into artifacts. These artifacts speak long after your voice falls silent. They become lighthouses for generations yet unborn. But the most dangerous legacy is not physical, it is energetic. Every act of integrity, every moment of courage, every synchronicity you followed ripples outward. These ripples collide with others, creating waves that move far beyond your perception. You will never know how many lives shifted because you stood firm, because you spoke truth, because you refused to dim. Legacy is carried not only in the stories told about you, but in the lives that are different because of you. The practice of legacy is daily. You do not build it in one grand gesture. You build it in every aligned decision, every courageous stand, every quiet moment of choosing truth over comfort. Each choice is a seed. Over time, the seeds become forests. People walk through those forests long after you are gone, never knowing your name, but breathing the air you planted. The old reality will try to erase you. It will attempt to bury your contributions, to minimize your signal, to rewrite history in its favor. But it cannot erase resonance. It cannot bury frequency. The dangerous legacy you leave will whisper through time, through memories, through culture, until even systems designed to suppress it collapse beneath its persistence. Legacy does not mean perfection. You will make mistakes. You will stumble. But if your signal remains steady, if your practices remain consistent, if your vow to never dim holds, your legacy will endure, not because you were flawless, but because you were faithful to the signal. When people speak of you, they may not recall every detail, but they will say, "Something shifted when they were here. I could not go back to sleep after encountering them." That is legacy. That is danger. That is immortality. And so as you reach this point in the journey, you understand. Activation was never only about you. It was about the waves that follow, the lives that awaken, the structures that fall, the forests that grow. You are not just a dreamer. You are not just a signal. You are the ancestor of a new reality. Your legacy is already unfolding. Every breath, every choice, every transmission writes it. The old world may tremble, but the future listens. And in that future, your dangerous legacy will live on, echoing, expanding, awakening forever.